Right. Ready? All right. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight and listening to our caucus meeting on May 14th. Before we get started, can we please stand for the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Liberty. Thank you. At this moment, I'd like to welcome the public for coming out and listening to our virtual meeting tonight. There might be some technical issues with the audio, so I appreciate if you can bear with us. If there are any citizens' comments at this time, our township manager will take your comments, and we will do our best to get you an answer next week when we meet again for our commissioners' meeting. So, Mr. Needles, at this time, can you just please take the comments?
Mike, do you want me to take a quick roll as well?
Yes. Why don't we do that? Yes, please take a quick roll call.
Commissioner Bacco?
Here.
Commissioner Whitaker?
Here.
Lisa Catania?
Here.
Commissioner Gaudioso?
Here.
Michael Pierce?
Here.
Commissioner Rakowski?
Here.
Commissioner Neary?
Here.
And myself, George Needles, present. Thank you. So if there's anybody on the call from the public that would like to speak, if you've called in, you'll need to press *6. We'll unmute your phone, state your name, your address, and then we just ask if you could keep it like 2 to 3 minutes for your comment. Michael, it appears that there's no comments tonight.
All right. Just let the record show that there's no public comments for tonight. If anybody trying to get in and couldn't, we apologize. So with that said, we'll move on with our meeting. There's a resolution to be considered tonight, and I'll have our township manager go over that resolution for us.
Good evening, everybody. As you know, all of our meetings are advertised as voting meetings. We have here is an opportunity to join in with other various municipalities and school districts to enter into a fuel contract. Currently, we purchase our fuel through the CoStarz cooperative contract, and we've been getting pretty good rates. However, we don't have a locked-in gallon rate. Invited to join in with the DCIU contract. And with that contract, we would save roughly from current prices that we're paying 30 cents per gallon on diesel and 30 cents per gallon on gasoline. What we do have to do is guarantee a minimum purchase. And to be able to do that, what we've done is we've gone through the records of what we spent last year and kind of taken some efforts to take out what we believe will be what we won't be using because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So we'll have lower numbers than what we would guarantee to purchase on a regular year. We considered that this would be a good idea for saving money in the current budget, and then as going forward next year as well, because the contract will last halfway through the year. So what I have in front of you is a resolution. Consider a resolution to enter into a cooperative purchasing agreement with various governmental entities for the purchase of gasoline and diesel fuel.
So moved. Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Are there any questions from the board about this?
George, move.
So I believe there's going to be a cost. So I believe there's going to be a cost savings about 40 cents a gallon on regular gas and a little bit more than that on diesel. So I think it's going to be a wise move for us to make.
And just as a point of information, I did discuss this with George and suggested that we do this resolution to enter into a cooperative purchasing agreement with the DCIU through the school district so that we can, just to make sure that everything is squared away, and that would be an appropriate resolution and cooperative purchase agreement. It is authorized under the First Class Township Code.
How long is the agreement for?
George, can you?
It runs.
It's a 1 year agreement.
It's a 1 year agreement. It's a 1 year agreement, and it runs on their year. So they're on a fiscal year. They start July 30th.
July 1 to, right, July 1.
July
to
1st to June 30th?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
That's a locked-in price. So
Yeah, it's
not that it ever really does, but if it goes below that price, we still pay the higher price.
we would still pay the higher price.
Right.
Now the gasoline price is $1.61, which is pretty good.
Yeah. No, just something rare happens where it goes down. I've seen them where you get the lower price if it goes below that.
So we've still, just as a point of reference, even with gasoline going down, we've still been seeing around $1.90, $1.85 in our purchasing.
All right.
Okay.
Commissioner Rakowski, Commissioner Neary, do you guys have any comments before we take a vote?
No, I read it. We're good. I'm good.
George, can you just take a roll call just the way we have the vote?
Sure. Commissioner Bacco,
Yes.
Commissioner Whitaker,
Yes.
Commissioner Rakowski,
Yes.
Commissioner Neary,
Yes.
and Commissioner Gaudioso.
Yes.
All right.
Motion.
Passes 5-0.
Motion carries. Thank you. All right, we'll move on. We will move on to our reports, and we'll start with our engineer.
Thank you. Do have a copy of my report. Wanted to mention that we did receive a revised plan set for Wawa. Alex completed the review today. I have to go through it. We have some items that we want to just verify with our traffic consultant now, Federico, but we should have that out either tomorrow or Monday. There are some items that need to be resolved with that are on our end, which includes some details for the park. They're asking for finishes for the different signage, etc., for the park. So they have most of the information. I don't know how important it is they have the actual wording for the signs, etc. But we have, Brian Seidel and I are working on that to get that over to Lynn's office to include. We'll probably have that for you to take a look at next week. Kate's Glen, we issued a notice to proceed today to AJ Jurek. They needed that notice to proceed and the submittals so that they can give us a schedule, because a lot of the materials are on back order. Unfortunately, COVID hit a lot of things, and that includes a lot of the materials that they need. So instead of looking at 2 to 3 weeks, they said they may be looking at 5 to 6 weeks. So they want to check that out. They'll be getting a schedule together. I know that Commissioner Gaudioso wants to put a letter out to the residents to advise them of the schedule and just a short scope so that everyone understands. We were going to try to have a meeting with them, but unfortunately, the stay-at-home order has did us in on that particular issue. Still don't have any resolution for the Mount Pleasant Church lighting. Not heard back from them. Now that contractors are allowed to work, I'll reach back out to them to see where they are. AutoZone, we're waiting on their final plan submission. Creekside Village, this is another one that the contractor or the developer has completed, but there's a punch list. They've been playing with the punch list quite a while. I'm again going to reach out to them. They had some questions back in January. We haven't heard from them since. So I'm going to make sure that they understand that that needs to be done for the residents. Willowbrook Clubhouse, we are getting very much closer to that project coming to fruition. I saw today that they were sending the checks to Southern for the connections into the Southern system. So we're one step closer to getting those plans recorded. And there has been a building plan review to help them expediting getting started with that clubhouse. The road program, we have the road program specification together. Cherry Tree Road, Al Federico went out, took a look, and is suggesting that we put 2 Seminole speed humps by the school. He has specific locations for those. He also is suggesting some line painting and some signage there to try to assist with the traffic calming. We did put the speed humps and the pavement marking for those speed humps in the contract. However, we have to do a revision to the flashing signal, school crossing signal there. So I'm suggesting that we hold off on the additional, which isn't part of the speed humps, until such time as we have that approval from PennDOT. Al is going to give us a markup. We'll do the drafting and send it into PennDOT for a revision. The Bergdahl Basin project, we do have a payment request number 1 in the amount of $306,949.50. We have not done a substantial completion punch list, so that is being worked on currently. We're still holding $37,635.50. There's some issues at the basin. The mulch that got put down was put down in too many places. There's some compaction that they've got to resolve, but we expect that is part of the punch list items. Chichester Avenue streetscape update. We are still waiting for the ADA ramp permits from PennDOT. We had a meeting with Al Federico yesterday to discuss some issues that have arisen. PennDOT would like us to put crosswalks across the ingress and egress of the interchanges of I-95. We don't feel that that is the correct thing to do. Number one, there is no accessibility path there, right at the overpass. What we had done was taken the ramps. People will come up to Beeson, come across Chichester Avenue, and then come on the other side of Chichester Avenue to Johnson. Then they can come back the other direction, come across the street again. So we're trying to stay away from that left-hand turn onto I-95 south. I see Nicole shaking her head, because we have so many people that come up the ramp. They're making that right-hand turn. It's almost a blind spot. It's a critical high-risk area, according to PennDOT, and they're asking us to do this. So we are planning on having a meeting with Fran Haney and the gentleman, Dennis Wilson from McCormick Taylor, to get that resolved. Because in our opinion, Al's opinion, it's unsafe to put those crosswalks in. We'd rather get them away from those 2 intersections. So just wanted to let you know there's a little bit of a delay in that, for the very reason we don't feel that it's safe. They've asked us to do a pedestrian study, which we can do, but we don't want to do it on 7 intersections or 7 crosswalks, because we don't feel that the 4 of them are necessary. The PennDOT 322 follow-up, we sent a letter to PennDOT concerning the retaining wall extension to Flora Lane. or through Flora Lane. As you recall, the Board of Commissioners had approved a garage door for access onto 322. We sent the information to PennDOT for the size of the garage door. I asked PennDOT consultant to verify that because I don't have any of the geometry. So I want to make sure that the larger trucks, the fire trucks, can get through safely without having to go into various lanes or possibly not be able to clear the garage door. So right now, Al Tomaselli and his group are doing the vehicle movements to make sure that we can get the truck through safely. We also sent a notification concerning pedestrian access along 322. PennDOT was putting a walkway from Oliver Lane to Kate's Glen. And there's a section of the walkway that the commissioners did not want. So I sent a letter with the markup or an email with the markup to PennDOT to have that section of sidewalk removed. Otherwise, I believe I can report general no, I'm sorry, West Helms. I almost forgot. West Helms, Al Federico did a recommendation, and I believe it was yesterday, no, 2 days ago, met with Commissioner Rakowski concerning the West Helms and the recommendations. Right now, we are waiting for some sort of a resolution with determined that a raised intersection would suffice. And I know that there's some other things that need to be done. What I'd like to do for the road program is put the raised intersection as an alternate. We'll have a price for the speed humps, and we can determine that later. I don't want to hold the contract any longer or hold the bid for that any longer. We'll do this under pen bid, so it'll be electronically bid. We won't have to have a public opening like we would normally have, but it is a public opening. And I believe that's all I have at this point. We're getting really good numbers. We get $75 a ton for material, and that was only a $100,000 contract. So we should get some pretty good numbers. That's all I have, unless anyone has any questions.
Commissioner Baca, do you have any questions for Lisa?
No, my only question is the speed humps on Cherry Tree Road. I don't know if that's coming out of my road program or how we want to handle that.
It's your road.
What's that?
It's your road. But Lisa, is that a state road?
It is not.
No.
That was a take back quite a few years ago.
So what's the issue, not just the speed humps, with the light, the pedestrian light? It's the first time I'm hearing about. Is there something wrong with the pedestrian light? We have to do something before the speed hump?
No,
why are we doing
there's
in front of
nothing wrong with the light. There's actually a PennDOT permit for that flashing signal.
Right.
So there's a permit plan that'll have to be updated to show the various items within that area. So the speed hump, the goring, etc., will have to be shown.
So yeah, you're just showing the addition that we may be putting in that's not
Correct.
there now. Okay.
Correct.
Commissioner Whitaker, do you have any questions for our engineer?
No, I don't have any questions.
Ed, you spoke, but do you have anything else?
Yeah, I got a couple of things. Well, you're correct with Helmsman. I did meet with Al. I'm waiting for his recommendation to come back, but we did. I think we were talking on the backside of the development for that raised intersection, but yeah, I would like to know what it would cost in the road program. We don't have to do it, but at least get it in there. Somehow, George, it's pretty crowded over there because of the COVID and everything. Everybody's home. I don't know if it's any possibility that we could have a meeting in the area to try to get them, or a virtual meeting with the residents, or get a letter out for the recommendations that Al and I would present and try to work out with the neighborhood. I realize what Lisa's doing, trying to get the cost of the raised intersection, because it is a speed hump. It's a whole intersection. But the intersection I would like would be the backside where West Helms and East Helms meet, not at the entrance of Boudwin. So the difference might be a little bit of size, and I can let you know about that. One might be bigger than the other, the intersection. I'm not sure. Because when Al talked, when I was with Al, it was in front of Boudwin and West Helms. But then when we went to the backside where all the speeding is, it was West Helms and East Helms where they intersect. It's probably about the same, but the roadway is 26 feet.
Yeah, the roadway is 26 feet wide. The purpose of a raised intersection is to slow people down at the conflict points. So we wouldn't be putting a raised intersection on a stretch of road. That would end up being speed humps. And right now, I don't have that information from Al. We do know that we're going to do some line striping. That will not, again, be part of the project. I'd rather get a line striping contractor out to do it the first time. And once it's done, like has been done in other streets, the maintenance group would be able to go ahead and then repaint those lines versus having somebody coming in to do that. So the intersection would be 22. I'm going by memory because I don't have it here in front of me. The raised intersection would be 22 foot wide by, I believe it's 26 feet wide.
Right.
Because of the, so I have that as an alternate. We have the detail for that in the specification. And then we will know how big these Seminole, we know now how much they are because we've used them before. We used them on Mill Road. We've used them on Ogden Avenue. So we'll have a price for that. We can always increase that number by a change order.
Okay.
Just one last question. I'm sorry. Quite frankly, if we get the report from Al in time, we can always put an addendum out, making that change to that number.
Okay. Now, one last question, Mike, for Lisa was, to Chichester Avenue streetscape, do we even have a final plan that everybody's going about with? Or is it just a revision, or has the revision plan ever been passed?
I'm sorry, Ed. I'm hearing somebody talk. Say that again.
The plan itself, the Chichester streetscape, do we have a final plan for this yet? Was it been revised and we have, the commissioners haven't seen the revised one? The concern is, as I talked to George, is I would like, once we create the streetscape, to go from Chai Meeting House down to Third Avenue where the concern was when we met with PennDOT and Boothwood Firehouse, put in the arm for that crosswalk and the light for the fire department. Is that going to match the same type poles at the intersections?
The streetscape that I'm referring to is the streetscape from the township line, Lawhead Avenue, to Johnson Avenue.
Right.
The other part is what Brian and I are working on. We will have the paver ribbon on the edge of the street, on the edge of the sidewalk, excuse me.
Right.
We know what lights we're going to be using because we're utilizing those through the whole community. What we need to do at this point is give them a detail for what we want the pillars to be, that monument pillar.
Right.
What that needs to look like. And then as far as taking it down through Meeting House Road, we'd have to look at how do we want to move ahead to tie everything together, not necessarily make it as, I don't want to say grandiose, but have a different feel than what we're going to do in the intersection itself.
Right. Okay.
So
Right,
we're doing this in stages. I think once we have this piece done, we have the portion along from Lower Chichester up to John completed. We'll have a pretty good idea of what we can do as we go down Meeting House Road, and then beyond that to the business district, the shopping centers, the school,
right.
and beyond. Because I think each one of them has to have some sort of a special look. We don't want to
Okay.
do the same thing at the school as we're doing in your intersection. We want to make that school and possibly the shopping center a little bit more of a gathering place.
Well, we're going to have enough time for, like I said, I don't want all this work everybody's doing. That one arm that's going to be in front of Boothland Firehouse, I just want to make sure that same arm is going to match whatever we decide to do up the street in that area.
Are you talking about the safe haven and the flashing signal that's going to be there?
Yeah, the
That's
way they were
already,
talking.
yeah, that's already, we've already told them that in that concrete median is going to be brick paver pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, we had wanted to put flowers there, but Putt was worried about the maintenance there. So we decided to make that concrete, but it'll be a stamped concrete brick paver.
Okay.
And then the pole will be part of the decorative pole.
Okay. All right. That's good. Yeah, so I'm done. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, Commissioner Neary, do you have any questions?
Just one real quick thing, Lisa. If we don't have anything from Creekside, any response from the builder from Costa, can we, I'm going to ask the board in June to start moving ahead with asking us to get the work done, the same procedure we did with Kate's Glen, because they're clearly not answering you or moving ahead. Okay. That's all I had.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Lisa, the only thing I have is the questioning of the residents from the drainage flow at the basin at the Bird Dog Park. So I know we talked about it, and I know that you're on top of it. Just let me know what you find out.
Will do.
With that said, we'll move on to our solicitor's report. Mr. Mike Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have too much from an action item perspective that needs to be acted on. The only action item for next week would be the approval of the Jake's Fireworks extension letter based on the postponement of the various meetings and the extensions. We just felt it would be better just to get an extension letter to make sure that everything is out front on that. I've been working with George concerning the COVID-19 legislation and the legal updates, make sure that we're all in compliance and that we're proceeding as we need to proceed. I've been asked to take a look at the manager's contract. I would need authorization from the board at some point to draft the contract and any extensions related to that. I would like to get that done prior to the meeting so that you can review on it and it comes up as a motion. Then you can approve that. But other than that, it was just everything else was in order, sir.
Any questions for our solicitor?
No.
The only thing I would ask before anybody speaks is, Mike, I'm okay with you starting to work on the amendment for George's contract. If there's no other objections, I would like for Mike to get started with that, and then he can present that to us, and the board can make it can vote on it.
Yeah, I'll have that before the next meeting so that everybody will be able to review it before the meeting.
Okay. Commissioner Baiocco, you have any questions?
No.
No, nobody. All right. All right. If there's no questions for our solicitor, we'll move on to our manager's report.
Good evening, everybody. I'll try to keep this as short as possible. Number one, franchise agreement update. As you know, past couple of years, we've been working with the Cohen Law Firm on updating our Verizon franchise agreement. At this point, we had the hearing. We've sent the items over to the hearing minutes over to Cohen's Law Firm. They are still working with Verizon on finishing up this contract. Once we have the agreement, we'll get that over. They're still asking questions about the what type of technology we need for our public access channel. Obviously, we've kind of seen from the situation we're in now that it is important that we have a functioning public access channel. And the public access channel we currently utilize, the software and the technology is severely outdated. We've been working to try to make updates over the past couple of years, but we're probably going to need a pretty significant overhaul. I do have someone going through to get us a price estimate. He's been working on this for quite some time. So we're still working on trying to figure out two components on that. But once I get that, I'll give that over to you. As you remember with the board, we have to decide if that's something we want to send over to them for a grant. And obviously that grant now comes out of the proceeds that we would receive from our franchise agreement. So we'll have to look at it and you'll have to decide if that's something you want to do or not. As you remember, a couple of weeks ago, we gave the fire company their allotments due to the financial stressors that they're facing due to the COVID-19 crisis. So we would just need a ratification of that vote. The vote was to allow for the fire company allotments, provided that they provide their 990s to us prior to receive their 2019 990s prior to receiving any 2021 funds. The third item is Children's Mental Health Awareness Week. This month, May, is Mental Health Awareness Month, and last week was Children's Mental Health Awareness Week. We typically do a proclamation for that, so I'd ask the board to consider a proclamation for that as well. With the shutdown, it's been difficult for people to pay their real estate taxes due to not being able to hold the tax collector office hours. So the board had discussed and voted on, took a straw vote on moving the dates. So we would have a resolution in front of you to extend the deadlines for the real estate tax. The discount period would be extended till June 30th, and then the value period would be extended till August 31st. Also with you tonight, we were sent a resolution by Chester Water Authority asking us to provide support in the way of resolution. In your packets, there's two versions of it. There's a version that came straight as the sample, and then there was one I took a shot at, just trying to modify some of the language. Feel free to give me any feedback of which direction you want to go, if that's something you want to do, if it's something you do not want to do. We had talked before this all started about having a short-term, long-term planning session. I think it's more important now than ever to do it. As we come out of this, the world is going to change forever. We don't know what parks are going to look like in the future. We don't know what government buildings are going to look like in the future. We don't know what the workplace is going to look like in the future. We don't know what downtowns are going to look like. We don't know what any of these things are going to look like. So I really think it'd be a good time, and Mike had mentioned doing it in June, early June, us getting together, really kind of getting back to the basics and saying, what can we look at? What do we really need to focus on over the next couple of years to make sure that we come out of this stronger than ever? As you know, last year we purchased some solar powered speed signs. What we'd like to do is we'd like to get the signs are good, but they are a little heavy. So what we were thinking we would do is if we could get with each commissioner and they could give us confer with the chief of police and PUT and come up with two locations in their ward that are really like bad locations. And what we'll do is we'll rotate them back and forth between those locations. And then we also have that floating sign that we can bring around. And let's say we get a call that, hey, outside of the areas that we know are the known areas, we have an issue that has arisen. That sign can go to that ward in that area and help address the situation at that time. So I'm going to be sending out an email to the board where I CC Chief and PUT and ask you guys to communicate and figure out what those locations are. And they're going to be doing site visits next week to try to get that done. License and inspection land development software. So last year we switched to Edmunds, which is it's a municipal, basically a municipal management software that handles all different aspects from asset management to finance management, escrow management to land development, permitting software. So I have in front of you just the sheet for what it would cost to switch over to their permitting and land development software. Some of the advantages are their software allows people to pay online with credit card. So we could start accepting credit cards. Now, obviously, we'd have to come up with some type of way to handle the service fee because there's a service fee associated with that. But it also allows people to apply for and track where their permit is online. So, for instance, if someone puts in goes online, puts their building application in, they would get dinged and let them know, hey, your building permit's is being reviewed. If there's any additional comments, questions, concerns, it would send it back to them. Also, we handle a pretty high volume of use and occupancy permits through the mail, and we tracked how many touch points there are before that comes in as an application to where it actually becomes an inspection. And this would cut out a pretty significant amount of those touch points and make us a lot more efficient. So this was an item that we had in the capital budget for this year. I'd ask you to review it. If you have any questions about it, concerns about it, anything, let me know. I'll try to go over anything with you. It would also open up more access to you being able to see what's going on. Right now, you've been given access through the app to be able to check out purchase orders and things that come through, or purchase requisitions. If you have a desktop, we can actually even give you further, or desktop or laptop, we can give you further access to be able to see more. And with this, you'd be, if you got a complaint or someone called you directly, you'd be able to look up within seconds to see what's going on at any property, if there was a permit, if there was a code violation. We also think for the first responders, this would be a really good tool to get into their hands, especially since we've been scanning documents over the past couple of years. So they would instantaneously be able to bring up a property and pull up the plan, see everything about it, determine what's going on. So overall, I think it's a very good tool. So, that'll be something I'd ask for feedback. Full-time administrative employee. So we have an employee that we had budgeted for bring on full-time in the beginning of the year. He is now done school and is looking for that full-time position if it's available. I put down a little synopsis based off of what we budgeted and where we would be and savings from that if we were to proceed forward. This individual has been really, really good for the township. He's working right now, trying to figure out how to make sure we get all this broadcast and also writing notes of all the things that aren't going right so we can fix them. But he's also, able to really play in every department. And he's really helped out. He's helped out in land planning and zoning. He's helped out in finance, administration, recreation, permitting. He's kind of been a utility player, which is always nice to have. So that'll be on there. If there are any questions, again, email me, let me know. COVID-19 update. So it's been working out really well with having the lobby open to only one person at a time. We're getting a significant amount of traffic. We're getting around between 3 to 6 people each day. We have a Dropbox out there. When someone comes in with an application or any documentation, we ask them to drop it in the Dropbox. The next morning, we sanitize the Dropbox, take everything out, and process them. Haven't had really much feedback from the public other than, we're not getting a whole bunch of traffic. So that's where we're at with that. The gym is still not open. The other item I have is originally there was not a escrow release, but as some of you have been getting calls, we're sending out all of the statements monthly now for all of the escrow accounts, trying to get them cleaned up as much as possible. We have a street escrow from 2015 that we'd like to release to the contractor. It's been verified that the work is done. Everything's been paved. So I'll have that for you as a resolution. And then the only other thing I have in other is there was a lot of RFPs that we were authorized right before this was started. I have some preliminary drafts of all of them. We can discuss it if I email. We could discuss it now. We could discuss it during that planning session. I'm just kind of looking for some guidance from the board as to where to go on these. Obviously some of them were pretty straightforward, but some of them are some things that, could be impacted significantly by the COVID-19. So I need to know kind of what we want to do with time for that. I think that's all I got.
So any questions? Any questions for our township manager?
George,
So,
when are
George,
you
the
planning
one-
on? When were you planning on
Go
that
ahead, Joe.
position starting? The position that the fellow. When did you want him to start?
July 1st.
I just I was going to say I think we should hold off a little bit till we see what's going on with all this. All right.
Okay.
You guys good?
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah, George, on that.
Any other questions for George?
Yeah, to piggyback on Joe Biacco, if we decided to go full time for the employee, what would be? I mean, I like the idea of a meeting in June, short term, long term, what our planning session is, because I think we ought to wait until we actually meet in June because of everything that's going on. My opinion. I was going to say it later on tonight, but I still feel as commissioner, we could work other things out on trying to be more fiscally responsible, because I'll put it on record tonight. I'm not afraid to say it. I have no problem going halfway with my road program if it's going to help us through the next year or two or whatever it is. But that's the things we need to discuss. My question is, if you hired the guy full time in July, does that mean you're going to want another part timer?
No, I mean, so we'd be, if he goes to full time, we'd add about 15 hours of productivity every week to him.
Mm.
So what I would say, in the budget, we had budgeted this year to do a finance director, and we had budgeted to do this as a full-time position. I think that it would be a stretch to go out right now and hire the finance director. But for me to be able to continue to allocate my time in the finance department as well, I think that we got to, I'm going to need a little bit more support. And I think with him, currently he's come up really quick. He picks things up really quick. We use them all over the place. So it would free up a little bit more of my time to be able to go into there if he's here 15 hours.
Right. And what is his, I know he's an intern, but what was his major for?
He's a marketing major.
Marketing major? Okay. And just one more last one. Or actually, it would be on the solar powered speed signs. I know Al and I went out to Helms Manor. I'm asking one of the other commissioners. I'd like to be able to borrow one of theirs for just a short period of time, because we need to put one on each side just to get some kind of a idea of a count of whether speed and I'm not sure if these new ones count, to be honest. And if we'd like to do
they're strictly the speed signs. The one that we have, the one that we have right now, the battery operated one, does have the software for the counts.
So we could use that one and plus the one for the one ward in mine on both sides. And I wouldn't have to borrow somebody else's, since we're trying to get a count to see how many cars actually go into that area at the same time within the next couple of weeks or so. So I don't need to ask any other commissioners for. I'll just use the one that's for my ward and then the older one. The only problem with the older one, we got to change out the battery every week or something like that. So that's the only problem. And let me make sure I think I get everything here. No, that's it. I said I would like to, like I said, the short-term, long-term planning session. I think we need to do that for anything. So that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
George, the one thing I'd like you to verify for me for the license and inspection for the software is when people apply online, their ability to scan any documents that they would need for a permit. How would that be handled as far as the township providing instructions within the software for them to do it? I'm just trying to make sure that it's user friendly.
Yeah, so basically the way it works is, let's say you go into the system and you say, I want to apply for a building permit, right? So it would start with, you would have a fillable PDF on the right-hand side. You would go in and fill in all your information on the fillable PDF. And on the left-hand side, depending on what the application is, you can require additional information, additional attachments. You can set them up, like, for instance, let's say we know very specific, if someone's doing a deck, we need plans, we would set it up so that it requires someone to submit a plan. Or if, let's say it's a commercial project, it would be to default that you wouldn't be able to proceed forward if you did upload plans. And then when that comes in, that goes and gets reviewed for completeness, and then you can send back to the person a specific note saying, this is exactly what you need.
Okay, all right. That sounds good. Are there any other questions for the manager? If not, we're going to move on to our commissioner's report. We'll start with Commissioner Joe Baiocco.
Thank you. Just going to update everybody and give an idea how highway and sanitation's operating right now. We've gotten some calls, some complaints on social media about us picking up trash and recycling together. George can help me correct me wherever I'm wrong too, George. But right now we can't go into Delaware. That's where the recycling goes. So that's why we're putting both together and just getting rid of it all as trash right now, but which technically saves us a little money. So, but as soon as we're capable to go back to recycling, we will. We are required by law. We maneuvered the guys around for safety. We have 2 guys do a truck now as opposed to 3, but have put out an extra truck to make up, so they're still haven't missed no days. All the trash is getting picked up. It's a little safer. We don't have 3 guys in the front of a truck. They got masks. They can sit far enough apart with just the 2 when they have to both be in the truck. Highway guys are just mostly everybody's on trash because we're staggering the men. We're just finishing up little projects that had to be cleaned up and stuff, with the highway guys. I know, like we finished up Johnson Avenue to, I think, the 452 building. Nothing big, no big projects right now because I don't think we can manpower them, and we want to try to watch the money. Sewer Authority. Right now, both girls are in there working. They're on separate floors to keep their distance. Someone goes to try to pay a bill or whatever, there's instructions on the door what to do. No shutoffs at this time right now. But they're operating at a minimal too. That's all I really have, unless anybody's got a question on anything. Nicole, I know why you're smiling. It came out today. There was, I'll just add this. I don't have too much information. I was going to wait till next week, but county council filed I don't know if it'd be considered a lawsuit or whatever. They filed in court today opposing the sale of Aqua Delcor to Aqua. That's about all the details I got. Hopefully I'll know more next week.
So for a point of clarification, the suit is actually not opposing the sale. It's more to do with the money and where the money will go for that fund that they were going to have in reserves, the trust.
Yeah.
It's more is actually about the trust and making sure that the money goes into the trust for Delcora as opposed to a trust owner. Because apparently it states that the trust is going to be owned by Aqua. So Delaware County Council is opposing that verbiage for the trust.
Yeah, like I said, I
Yeah.
didn't know much. You know, I don't want to comment much because I don't know much right now.
Yeah.
All right. If there's no other questions for Commissioner Vaca, we'll move on to Commissioner Whitaker.
All right. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. The library, as you know, has been looking for a new location, and one of the places that they were looking at is Kingsman Road, the park there that is township, that is owned by the township, and so they are looking, hopefully, to be able to use that. George, I see the letter that was sent that was prepared. Has that actually been mailed?
I think he said no, Nicole.
I'm sorry, it has not been mailed.
It has not been mailed yet. Okay. So that letter that's in the packet is a draft of a letter that, will go out at some point. It's from Commissioner Gaudioso that is in his ward, and he wants to get feedback from the residents as to what their feelings are or would be regarding a library in that location.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
It's been real crazy, Nicole, with all this COVID stuff going on. I fell behind a little bit with getting the letter out with everything else going, but it'll go out. Trust me.
Right. No, that's fine. I was trying to find my report here. I had it a second ago, but then it went away. So the library board appointment. Which one of you gentlemen are going to step up and join the library board? Mr. Neary, you have been requested to join the library board.
I know everybody in the world requests me to join these things. I talk to them. I have a lot of responsibilities that I've talked to them about. I mean, I'll consider it, but there's one
I
that
understand. I'm just putting it out there that the request was made specifically for you.
I've gotten several phone calls and text messages, and I'm waiting for them to all band together so they can all help me next year.
Right. So it would either be yourself or Mr. Gaudioso, because I don't think Mike hasn't neither one of you two have been on. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's not true. That would be you or Ed, because Mike, Ed, myself, and Joe have been appointed to the library. So that would be you or Ed. So
Okay.
Ed, you would be a backup, okay?
I think Joe would be good.
Okay, what else do I have? So recreation, we're still in the red. Delaware County's still in the red. We're supposed to I guess the projected date is June the 4th, Thursday, June 4th. If all goes well, we will be out of that, going into the yellow. I reviewed some information from across the state regarding reopening guidelines, and if we are in the yellow, I guess for example, as of July 1, they are some outdoor camps would be they're saying yes to outdoor camps with the applicable ratios, meaning 1 to 10, and groups less than 25 people in a specific activity zone. So with that being, I think we wait till June and see what happens. I know that if people are back to work, they're certainly going to want to have somewhere for their children to go for camp. So just, consider that. If you have any, strong opposition to it, then we should talk about it. But I think that, something in July, or even in August, a 30-day camp I think would be a benefit to families, that are going back to work, especially since we've all been stuck in the house for the last couple of months. So that's something that we want to consider. Heart and Soul Committee has been meeting via Zoom. They sent out during April, they sent out the survey. I completed the survey. I hope all of you did as well. And what else? So they did the survey that was posted on our website, and they said they had a 10%, I think, return on the survey. So it wasn't a lot, but I guess 10% of the population. So they may have received about 700 surveys. The FEMA. So I participated in a, I guess, webinar regarding the FEMA and how we have to apply for that grant money. I was speaking with George about that as well. So that's in progress. And just want to remind everybody to make sure that you complete your census. I believe the census was pushed back to July, was it 31st due date for the census? So please make sure you do that. And the Linwood Heights project, I don't have anything specific, any updates on that right now. Do you have anything on that, George?
Yeah, so you have a draft in your packets.
Okay.
We only got the package digitally, so I do have some paper copies if you want me to drop them off at your homes to review. So that we can kind of work on now how to come in and present that plan at this point.
Say that last part again.
The Delta Group, we can work on having them come into one of the future meetings and present the plan.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you. That's all I have.
Right. Nicole, the only other thing I think we should start thinking about is Community Day, and if we're going to planning on having it or not having it, maybe have fireworks at a minimum. So I think we should start thinking about it now than later. So
Okay.
that's something to consider. I mentioned
So
Brian about it, so I haven't mentioned it to you.
So one of the things that Brian and I had spoken about last year, and George at some point as well, was pushing it, having our fireworks at some other time, maybe during the summer, or fireworks on Labor Day, but pushing the actual activities for Community Day to more of a fall event, so it wasn't falling on the Labor Day weekend. So we had spoken about that, trying to brainstorm on some other ways we could engage the community. So yeah, I don't foresee us having our traditional Community Day at this point. September 1st, like we usually have anyway. So we definitely need to think about something else, and so we can talk about that as well.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll be in a position where we can have that large of a crowd by that time, but there was action among the rec board last year and some people in the community about doing it on homecoming weekend, and just kind of making homecoming weekend to a really big celebration in the township.
Right, and he was trying to work with the school district, specifically the football coach, to make it truly a family event, so you can get more of your older students out, have something during the day for the younger children, and make it a truly like a family fun weekend. The parade that the high school usually has, we could combine our parades and really have a full parade as well. Our parades, we it's hard pulling kids for the summer when they're away, usually that last weekend at the beach or whatever. So that was just some of the thoughts, some of the things that they were discussing.
Right. Thank you. So other questions, we'll move on to Commissioner Ed Rakowski. And
whoops, sorry about that. Yeah, I see that, driver. Nicole, question. Is the skate park supposed to be open during this time or what?
The skate park is not supposed to be open, and the skate park should have been reclosed today.
Okay, wasn't sure because I've heard, I've been up there and I've seen it open. I didn't know if it was supposed to be shut or not. So
Yeah, I'm not sure how we missed that, but I think it was corrected today.
thank you. Yeah, Mike, you're good with your timer. Nothing much. We touched on the Helms Manor. That's done. The DCED study is on hold because of the COVID situation, but all reports will be on file next week. That is it.
You sure?
I'm positive.
All right.
Whoa.
Any questions for Ed?
Don't ask.
Gronkowski? All right. Let's move on to Commissioner Neer's report.
Mr.
Commissioner Neer.
President, hello. Yeah. The financial report is in the books tonight and will be available. It's available in the office. We'll have a list of bills next week. As George mentioned, there is at least one escrow release. Trash refunds, there are two, I believe. I did not receive anything from the police for this week, but I'll check with them and see if there's anything. And the update on Ryan's Run basement is that we, in all likelihood, are not proceeding with that work because we can't get a release from one of the residents. So that will be something that, that money can be in the future used somewhere else. I was asked yesterday, and this affects you, Joe, about Third Ward, and I mentioned it to George today about voting on election day, whether they could go back to the rec area so that they can get some more social distancing in rather than the small room that I think you guys vote in now.
Let's go out into the
Go into the rec area, into the gym area.
Yeah, it's fine with me.
So I know George is going to be looking at it too, and that's all I have.
Any questions for Commissioner Neary? If not, we'll wrap up with my report. License and inspection. There should be the revised property maintenance concern letter in the package that George sent out today. Please review them. There's still a language in there about the $1,000 fine if they don't comply. So just please read it. After my report, I'll ask Mike to update why that has to be in there. Planning. I like to have a solicitor available for the planning board just to make sure things are being run smoothly. They have legal advice, so by the time things get to us on the board level, we have a clear understanding of what is going on as well. So if there's no objections with that, I think that'd be a powerful tool for the planning board to have. I like to have Mike Pierce work with the planning board. So, think about it. If there's no objections, I like to move on with that. Pending applications, we're waiting for AutoZone for the final land development. Jake Fireworks has an extension, and 800 Galbraith Avenue is under review at this moment in time. There's a zoning pending application, 3954 Riviera Road. That's on hold until the zoning board resumes its meetings. I don't know when exactly they're going to resume or not, or if they're going to have virtual meetings. So that's something I'd like to try to hash out with them as soon as possible. Is there any questions for me?
I got one.
Mike, concerning the maintenance letter, can I have Mike address the property maintenance letter first regarding the language about the potential fine?
Right. So generally, when you're sending out those type of letters, in order to be able to make them an appropriate notice, people have to be aware of what the potential consequences are. That is not to say that we're going to go after somebody for $1,000, but our ordinance calls for fines of up to $1,000. So the proper notification would lay out what the potential penalties are if they continue to refuse to maintain their property or do anything. If we don't put those type of things in there, then we may have a problem with satisfying the notice requirements as it comes down in any future enforcement or notification, because if we don't have that in there, they can say, well, we never knew about it. We don't, whatever. There's at least an argument that they wouldn't know about it. I would tell you that in 99% of the cases, we do not ask for the maximum fine. When we work with the code enforcement officers, our main goal in these type of scenarios is to get compliance. So once we get compliance, generally any citations are withdrawn. We do have a couple of folks that I would characterize as habitual offenders. And those habitual offenders, we've had Keith and other members of the code enforcement office working with them. If they're in a situation where they need help, whether it's because they're elderly or because they're having health issues, those type of things, we've brought in outside agencies to try and help them comply with what they need to get complied with from a property maintenance. We run into difficulties, and obviously, a lot of it is driven by some of the neighbors who are not happy with the condition of a property. So our goal, again, is to get compliance, but in order to satisfy the notice requirements, we have to lay out what the potential penalties are. And you can call it getting their attention, whatever you want to call it. But I'm just trying to reassure the board that in 99% of those cases, we never get to that stage. We're able to obtain compliance. So I hope that addresses what you were asking, Mike.
Thank you. So the new draft letter, it has our code officer's name in it. It has his phone number in it. And it specifically says that if you need more time, to please contact your code officer, and the township will be more than happy to work with you. So, again, our goal is not to levy $1,000 fines to our residents. Our goal is to work with them. If you happen to receive a letter, it's a concern letter. It's not a fine. It's just asking you to please comply with the township ordinances. And if you do need time, or if you're experiencing any type of hardship, please contact us and we will be more than happy to work with you. So, Commissioner Whitaker, you have a question.
Yes, thank you. My question was regarding the planning board, the comments that you had made regarding having an engineer attend the meetings.
Solicitor.
You said an engineer or solicitor?
Solicitor.
Oh, okay. That's why I was confused. I thought you said engineer, and then you said Mike Pierce. And I was like, which one? Solicitor. Okay.
I wear a lot of hats. That wouldn't be one of them. I defer to my colleague, Lisa Catania, on that.
I mean, the planning board and the board of commissioners work hand in hand with each other. They are they provide a recommendation on whether or not they like something. So Nick is obviously involved with all the planning commissions.
Right.
So it'd be a great idea for him to be there to provide any type of legal advice. And when he gets to our level, he has a better understanding of what's going on because he's been at the meeting and can better advise us and the planning board also.
Okay. And then I have a comment when we get to, I guess, the end. After everyone goes, I have another comment.
All right.
Now, Mike, I don't understand. Did the planning board request a solicitor, or it's my understanding, and it's not even my understanding. The zoning board is law. Planning board is an advisory or recommendations that come to the board of commissioners for us to make the final decision. Did the planning board request a solicitor, and why? Or why is this coming up? Because my concern now, again, is who takes this cost on for having a solicitor at that meeting. And no matter what they advise to us or recommendations, any kind of a waiver that the planning board comes to us with any applicant, because the applicant may ask for it and maybe the planning board would agree or disagree or give us the their opinion or their recommendation to this board, then the board makes the final decision. So why is there a need for the cost of a solicitor to be at that board? When zoning is law, they're implementing the law, zoning, no doubt.
Well, it's a little bit more complicated than that, Ed. Most of the municipalities that I work with do have an attorney go to the planning board. So the zoning, you have to have a separate attorney because the zoning board may have interests that are divergent from the township. In other words, there could be a conflict, so they have to have their own independent counsel. The planning board, as you correctly pointed out, is advisory in nature. And as a practical matter, it is, I review all the stuff that goes through the planning board. However, a lot of my time is spent going back and forth with Barb or other members of the planning board to find out exactly what they meant or what the questions are. So I think what Mike is trying to we're trying to get a little bit better handle on what the thought process is from the actual planning board meeting so that I can present it if the questions come up at the commissioners meeting to be able to say, well, this is what they were thinking and this is why they were thinking it. And then rather than trying to speculate, go back, reinvent the wheel, go back and redouble the efforts, which often ends up spending twice as much time that if I was at the meeting and they go down a wrong path, we can get them on the right path and be able to make a determination. You know, as I said, most of the municipalities that I've been dealing with over the last 30 years have their solicitor go to the planning board for just such issues so that they can be addressed. Because a lot of what happens is when you have an applicant come in and they are making presentations to the planning board has no idea whether that's appropriate, whether a legal opinion, whether there needs to be waivers, whether it needs to go to the zoning hearing board, and you end up wasting a lot of time. Whereas if myself or my partner or somebody else were sitting there, they could sit there and say, hey, you don't need to do this or you don't need to worry about that. That's an issue that'll either go before the zoning hearing board or the board of commissioners. So it's actually, in likelihood, is probably a cost saving rather than trying to go back and reinvent the wheel.
So you're telling me you've been reviewing our planning commission's reports prior
Yes.
to coming to us?
Each application, that is correct.
Right.
The engineer and myself do that, yes.
Is this going to be their decision still as an advisory board or yours on some of the decisions that the applicant is asking the planning? Because the planning board still has their
They still have the advisory authority, that's correct. Right. And that doesn't change in any way, shape, or form. But if you remember, in a lot of the applications that have come forward to the Board of Commissioners, there have been questions or issues raised by the planning board, and then this board will ask me, so, well, what do you know about that, or what were they thinking? And my answer has been, I have no idea because I wasn't there. I don't know why this was being raised or what the appropriateness of it being raised. And I think that we can nip a lot of it in the bud and streamline it to be able to say, okay, this is where we're going. This is why it was done. And this is how it was done. I'm not going to be telling them you have to do this or you don't have to do that. But we've had a number of instances where applicants have come in and they're basically going up the wrong tree, and we're wasting a lot of time and effort when some of these matters should either be going directly to the Board of Commissioners or to the Zoning Hearing Board before they even get to the Planning Commission.
And isn't that sometimes already on that review from the zoning officer to say denied, it's got to go to the zoning before it goes to
may or may not, but we've had instances where those reviews were not entirely accurate or consistent.
Okay, so the question is, who's going to take this cost on for a solicitor to be there at every meeting?
I don't know that it's going to be any more cost than it currently is, because the issue is Now I have to go back in order to prepare for the Board of Commissioners meeting when there's been an
I lost my
application for
audio. I
zoning,
can't hear
is to
nobody.
go back and review everything that they've done. Whereas if I was at the meeting, I would already know that.
Yeah, but that's going to put the cost on the applicant and not the township, I would hope. But unfortunately, there you go again. Now we're
Not
going to be,
generally the cost. No, not generally. Not generally.
well, we don't have a solicitor there now. So now you're telling me all this time that you've been reviewing it. So we are getting a bill for every review that comes through the planning commission.
And those charges that can be passed through to the applicant are being passed through to the applicant. Some charges cannot be passed through to the applicant.
My main goal to do this, Eddie, is to make a strong, and it's not for Mike to go there and say, you guys have to vote a certain way. It's the same thing when Mike can give us advice, and we might say, we don't agree with that. It's a type of process. So it's just for them to have some type of legal advice of what is going on.
And if they have, a lot of times, a lot of these questions come up at the planning board, and they're legal questions, and they don't know how to answer them. So then they have to hold a second meeting. They have to come back and say, well, we need to contact the solicitor about that. Well, if you have the solicitor sitting there, we'll at least be able to move forward with that issue.
Am I correct also that not only if the board could appoint this one, but the planning board could appoint their own?
Planning board does not appoint their own because they're only advisory in nature, and anything that they do is of the same, they are on the same side as the Board of Commissioners, in other words. They don't have, unlike the zoning hearing board, they don't have a competing set of interests. Under the first class township code and under the township codes, the zoning hearing solicitor and the zoning hearing board has to be separate from the Board of Commissioners. That is not the way it is with the planning commission.
Yeah, but the section 202 on the planning commission also reads that, yes, the Board of Commissioners can appoint their solicitor to the board, but if the planning, it's up to the commissioners to decide this. But
you can have two different people, then you're going to be paying a separate solicitor for that, and then you're going to be paying me to review it. So I don't really care. You do whatever you want.
Well, why would we have two different people? If just hypothetically, if the planning board hypothetically said we would like this one, even though you're right, the commissioners have the authority to appoint you, since you're the township one, why would we pay twice if he's already reviewing it? And giving
because he's reviewing and I have to review it on your behalf. I represent you.
Isn't that why he's there?
Hey, I don't, there is nothing that goes before this board that I don't review to make sure that it's appropriate. I don't care who says it is. I'm putting my neck on the line when I advise you as to what's happening.
Well, I understand.
So I'm not taking anybody's word, anybody on the planning board, if they appointed their own solicitor, I'm not taking his word for it. Absolutely not. I'd review it anyway.
So I'm just glad that the Board of Commissioners probably finally know, because I never knew it, that you reviewed every planning commission that came through this town.
I certainly do. I review all the applications.
All right. I'm done with it.
All right. Thank you. All right. Well, I'm hoping I can get the board to support this. I think it'd be a great tool for the planning board to have. So, Nicole, do you have any new business you'd like to bring up?
Yes, I just wanted to do things is to remind everyone that the last day to file or to apply for a mail-in ballot is May 26th. So if you have any residents, seniors specifically, that need a ballot, reach out to them, or anyone that that typically does get a ballot, to be of assistance if you can. May 26th is the last day to apply for an absentee ballot. I believe Delaware County has just started mailing the ballots out. I've heard a lot of feedback from people saying they haven't gotten them yet. It's been over a month. So they are have begun mailing the ballots out. So, be on the lookout for yours if you've already applied. Make sure you send it back in. It needs to be back to the county by June the 2nd. Okay. And then the last thing that I wanted to say, I was looking at some of the comments on Facebook, which I probably shouldn't have, but I did anyway, regarding the library, just so we're clear. The library did have a, what do you call it? Help me remind me of the word, please, on the ballot.
A referendum.
Thank you. A referendum that was voted down several years ago. Okay. So the library that, we are, that we have been, discussing today is on township owned property. So that is a benefit. We're not going to be buying any additional property. The township already provides the library with a significant stipend. So that money is already there. So we're hopeful that with the, if this does move forward, that it will not cost the taxpayers any money and any additional money in terms of being taxed. This will allow for the library to apply for funding for grants, and they do have an investor, a private investor that is willing to invest in the library. So it will not be, at this point, we do not, we're not looking at additional taxes, raising the taxes, or another referendum for the library. Okay.
You sure you want a Democrat on that board? Now they love to raise taxes.
Oh, yeah, right. Okay.
You heard it.
10 years.
So that's all I have. Thank you.
All right. As far as voting is concerned, I believe all our polling stations will be open on June 2nd. So I just want our residents to know that if you feel strongly about going to the polls and voting, that option is open. However, my understanding is it's going to be a paper ballot, and you will fill out a paper ballot there. I don't know exactly if it's going to be counted at that particular time, but it's going to be. It's we're in uncharted territories, but I will be at the polls. So I just let our residents know that the polls will be open. Commissioner Neary.
5-1. Well, Luther Knowles is going to be consolidated over to Reliance.
Right.
So, and it will be a paper ballot. It will not be counted that night. It will be scanned. My understanding is it will be scanned at the county over the next day or two after the election. So it'll be a couple of days before you have the result. And as Nicole said, I would advise everybody to, vote by mail. And unfortunately, because of Kevin's situation, I'm not going to be at the polls. This is the first time in probably 30, 40 years that I'm not going to be at the polls, but I can't risk Kevin's health for this.
The other thing I wanted to add is that there is, and I can ask George to put it on the website or the Facebook page, is the Votes PA.
Right.
There, and I just saw that last night, where you can actually track your ballot. So for those that do not trust the mail-in, which I'm kind of on that, but you can track it, see when it gets mailed to you, and see when it gets back as well. So you can definitely track your ballot if you do that. So just keep that in mind. You can post that information for the residents, and then so there is a polling location change, meaning Lutheran Knowles is not available, so it's all going to be at Reliance at one location.
Right. So for my constituents that vote at Luther Knowles, which is considered 5-2, that is no longer an option. You will, as Commissioner Whitaker said, you would have to go to Reliance Fire Company. It's right behind Pat's Pizza. So if you know where that is, right off of Mill Road, that's where you would have to go and do your write-in ballot. So I don't have any other questions. Just one last thing. I believe George got an email from Barbara Ed, and she's saying that she was on board with the solicitor also, assisting the planning board. So I just want to throw it out there before we end tonight. So with that said, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'd like to thank everybody for attending tonight, and please be safe. I know these are trying times, and hopefully this will end soon. So everybody hang in there, and we'll see you next week. Thank you and good night.
All
Good night,
right.
everybody.
Right,
Good night,
all.
everybody.
Okay,
George, you
Yes.
have to work on the audio.
I'm working
Yes.
on it.
Okay.
Good night, everybody.
Right.
Good night.